The NHL is currently at a crossroads and developmental period of one of the most important aspects of the game, the salary cap. As you all know, the salary cap is what constricts teams to not spend more money than the rest of the league. There is an upper limit set by the league every year to determine how much money can be spent on the teams. And for the first time since the start of the COVID pandemic, there has been an actual increase. And with the projections of the league over the next few years ranging another 20 plus million over the next 3 seasons, it is showing absolutely no signs of slowing down. So the current rise in the salary cap is being celebrated by fans, players, and teams alike because it means things like players earning more money, you can have more freedom in terms of signing players in the off season, and it also means that the sport's becoming more popular because the salary cap is set by a revenue share of how much the entirety of the league makes, which is a good thing. During COVID, we were in the flat cap period for the NHL, which saw the cap not go up by anything for a period of 3 to 4 years. And before that, maybe like a 1.5 million or so. I'll have the number posted on the screen, but it didn't go up. And then we saw a massive $4.5 million jump in the past season. And there's an even bigger jump happening now and an even bigger projected jump after that. The flat cap era presented struggles for teams and players, mainly your competitive teams who had guys that were younger on good contracts who they had to get paid. I know this is not a good example because I'm a Canes fan, but using the Canes in the previous offseason is a big one. We had guys like Jake Gensel, Marty Necas, Seth Jarvis, Brett Pesce, and Brady Shea, among others, to re-sign, and not a lot of salary cap space to do it because the cap hadn't gone up. Also, situations like Toronto we saw this offseason where Mitch Marner had to go. Granted, this is with the league salary cap going up a little more, but still, you see the problems that arise with a salary cap that is not fluctuating very much. But that pales into comparison into what the league is actually about to be in for when it comes to the salary cap rising as fast as it's projected to. But however, as bad as this all sounds, this presented a couple of good things for the NHL. One thing that's really exciting during the offseason is the free agency period, which this past season was kind of not great because most of the players stay with their original teams. We'll get to more on that later, but you have players moving teams. I feel like there's a better level of parity if the salary cap stays the same because high-level players who are due pay raises cannot afford to stay on the same teams. So you have more fluctuation. It also forces GMs to be a lot smarter with their money. You can't just go spending bukus of money on players who don't deserve it because then you're putting your team in a bad situation. More so than if the salary cap explodes and a couple bad contracts are no longer accounted for in the salary cap as a punishment. Another reason the flat cap was decent was it prevented super teams from being formed. If the salary cap had stayed relatively similar to what it did the past couple of years, there is no way the current Florida Panthers would have gotten all 3 of their big key free agents back. Now, I get that the whole, tax-free Florida thing is becoming a major trending topic right now, and I don't think there's too much validity to that. I think that's a topic for a separate video that I could cover later, but I think the plethora of players that ended up staying in Florida would not have happened if the salary cap had stayed flat, and that's not a good thing for the league because people are tired of the Florida Panthers. It's the same situation with the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL. So now let's jump gears and talk about why the expansion of the salary cap is a bad thing, contrary to what everybody believes currently, because we are going to be controversial about it. So, as I alluded to earlier, the free agency pool for the 2025 offseason kind of sucked. And that's coming from a Canes fan who ended up landing the biggest free agent in Nikolai Ehlers. But a lot of the players who would have been free agents had worked deals out ahead of time, mostly with their own teams, because the salary cap had gone up by so much, so there was more available money for everyone to keep their players. Now, I am a fan of, bringing in new faces and, shifting things up a little bit. Things would probably get a little stale and a little boring if you had the same 18 skaters and 2 goalies playing every game, every season. I get that you have your core pieces and that core pieces very rarely get moved, but it seems like this offseason there were like far fewer core pieces moved. And let's think about the ridiculous spending spree that happened last offseason. It was exciting. It was fun to watch. We did not get that this offseason because, again, players stuck with their teams because there was more money to do so. Another reason, and one that does not get talked about a lot, is the salary cap floor, or I guess the salary floor we'll call it. So not many people know that there is a salary that you are required to pay out to your team to be league competitive. And I believe what I've heard is that it's $25 million below the salary cap, meaning this year's is around $70 million for the 2025-26 season. And this huge huge jump means that some players are going to have to get paid way more than they're worth. Now, I'm not trying to poke fun at anybody, but a defenseman for the San Jose Sharks that just signed a 2-year, $13 million contract would definitely not be getting paid that. Now, that sounds like a good thing, but what happens when the young players on the San Jose Sharks team have to get paid? Guys like Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, Michael Misa, and whoever else they have that are young guys. If you're paying a bunch of veteran players huge contracts they don't deserve just to hit the salary cap floor, in a couple years that could spell disaster for teams trying to get out of rebuilds. And now's the part of the video where we kind of talk about baseball for whatever reason. So baseball does not have a salary cap, but they have a luxury tax implemented on players and teams that go over a certain amount. And I think baseball has a parity problem where certain teams like the Dodgers have more money spent in 2 players or maybe even 1 player than some teams do on their entire roster. Now, we do have a cap floor and we do have a cap ceiling, but by the salary cap rising so much, what we could run into is some of these smaller market teams with owners that don't want to spend as much money not spending for their roster. At what point does this not become a good return on investment? So I know that the salary cap going up means that league revenue is going up. We discussed that earlier, and that generally the business would be good. But at what point are we going to start getting owners who no longer care about the on-ice product because there are diminishing returns on spending a massive increase in money when you're not guaranteed to get that back in revenue for your team specifically? In terms of revenue share, I mean, it's not that big of a difference from maybe 16 through 32. But when you're looking at it, what happens if the owners of the bottom teams decide, hey, I don't want to spend the money on a fully competitive roster anymore. It's too expensive. The returns aren't great. I mean, looking at it from the Buffalo Sabres, or not even then, the Columbus Blue Jackets perspective, I have a graph here of all 32 teams' net valuations, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are at the bottom with a valuation of $1 billion. If that valuation holds true, 10% in 2 years, 10% of their valuation will be spent on their roster. That is quite a bit. And again, I think the salary cap at some point could be going up faster than team valuations. What happens then? Because then then the owners are actively losing money, and that's never a good situation for a sports league. And the final problem I see, which to me honestly hurts the absolute most, is that the salary cap gives more room for current players to stay in the league longer than their time that they should. One of the beautiful parts of a really tight salary cap is that you have unexpected surprises pop up in rosters, normally from developmental camps. Think like Jackson Blake for us Hurricanes fans, for example. We had to bring him up because we needed someone to play on the bottom 6 at first who did not have a huge contract. And he did, and he filled in the spot perfectly, and now he got his bag, obviously. But if the salary cap had been, $3 or $4 million higher, Jackson Blake doesn't even get a shot. And that just limits the amount of players that get to move up into the NHL. I really do feel like rookie sensations who come out of nowhere are going to be severely hindered by the salary cap blowing up like it is. I mean, you've got less rookies now than ever, I feel like. More established players are playing longer on average, and you're seeing less and less new faces every year, except for some bottom feeder teams who have really high draft picks. And even then, let's look at the Islanders. In the case of Matthew Schaefer, he's probably not going to play this year. Now, I get that he's not a generational prospect like some of the others in years past, but still, with all the current players being able to stay in the league longer because salary cap is no longer a huge concern, it does not let them get back up into the league, and it's not a good look. And again, I'm not trying to be negative about this. I really like the idea of the salary cap going up because at the very base level, it means the league's making more money and the players are making more money. And based on projections, I think there's going to be a 22% increase from what the salary cap is now to the 2028 season. 22%. That is a massive jump. That means a fifth of the you're adding an extra fifth of the current salary cap to the salary cap in 3 years. That is huge. But let's not forget what happens because of that. Let's not forget the small consequences that we put in this video. And hopefully the league will, look at some of these things and make changes to prevent these things from taking over. Make sure to click the like button if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below on what your concerns or your praises for the salary cap going up are. Thank you guys again for watching. And as always, stay crazy, guys, and peace out.